So I'm going to flip it the other complete other side of the dock here. So that's outbound and shipping. What about inbound, where it never gets the love in our field that it deserves, but
Yeah,
probably the most important? Yeah.
you are 100% right because it doesn't get the love and it should. I mentioned before, it's great that a 3PL or a B2C provider is fulfilling everything at 99.5%. But if they only have a fill rate of 90%, they don't have things in stock, they're missing a key variable. So what I recommend for a number of my clients, as well as my past companies, is to align with a company that will measure your inbound performance. And so it will measure fill rate, it will measure how many times they ship for that same location. At Kohl's, when I set it up, ultimately through a number of different initiatives, but this was one of the main ones, we were able to reduce our overall cycle time by about 25%. And it was really just giving our vendor partners better visibility up front. And again, it has to be proactive. So when something happens, so if the shipment was supposed to be in today, okay, it's not coming back to them in 3 months and saying, oh, you were late. It's telling them tomorrow that we were expecting this shipment and we needed that shipment and here's what's going on. Help us help you. And so I think the more companies do that up front, it will have the biggest impact. So you are 100% on that. If you don't fix it up front, you're always going to be chasing your tail. And I think the difference is a company that looks at something myopically or more globally is exactly what you said, Chad. They have to look at it up front.
Yeah, it's different podcasts, different. If you go into Modex, the majority of everything you find is some type of technology solution or automated solution for outbound order fulfillment. There, a lot of things are written about price as it relates to parcel. There's all sorts of content available to that. To a lesser degree, inventory management systems, but poor old inbound, I feel like, is even with labor staffing shortages, people typically push that workload to make sure that the orders go out, and what gets suffered is on the inbound, which means escapes are coming into the building and we're not doing the due diligence and we just take in the shortage undetected. And so I'm curious, do you have any experience of bringing automation in on the inbound side, or is that just?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've implemented systems both at Kohl's, GNC, Pet Value. I also was part of getting it stood up at some other retailers, CVS, Petco. So there definitely is Giant Eagle. It's an opportunity that I think is overlooked way too often. And I would tell you that the difference as we look forward a couple years, those companies who are focusing now on the inbound, okay, are going to be so much further ahead than everyone else. Because the reality is large companies, okay, have different systems and have different tools. But sometimes the small to medium and emerging company may not have some of those metrics and those tools and those systems and that visibility. Because at the end of the day, it's not about chargebacks. It's not about being punitive. It's about correcting it up front so that ultimately the customer will be able to come back to your site because you're in stock and somebody else isn't. And exactly. So whatever we can do together on that, I think that's huge. Will have a major impact on the industry for years to come.
I'd be interested in partnering with you on something like that, Jay, because vendor management process, when you think about what really keeps you up at night, but the things that really hurt, a fulfillment operation, it's vendor compliance, it's lot control, it's FIFO, it's quarantined items, it's the fill rate that we didn't count correctly on the front end, or training that didn't exist. Those are all the problems that typically run through the four walls, are all traceable back to the inbound, where we just
well, it works when you have different reporting that not is a supply chain reporting. It's something that we shared with our merchants and our president, and that became their report that they would use as they're sitting down with vendors and talking about additional orders. And we gave those people who had a certain level of compliance there was additional benefits for them. So it was a win-win. We would process their goods faster. We would occasionally, based upon what a vendor had, what the terms were, could even pay them faster if they were compliant, and it helped differentiate. But the biggest thing it really did is those vendors who were in stock, who we didn't have to chase, they were receiving more orders automatically. And so it really is a win-win. So when it can be a benefit for everybody involved, that's when it's going to be monumental. That's when it's going to change and be transformational. That's how, again, as I mentioned, we reduced our supply chain days by 25%. And at the time, Kohl's was going through, the third time I was there, we were going through a lot of growth and expansion. We went from roughly 7 billion to 16 billion in 6 years. And the ability to have our supply chain be nimble, the ability to have accountability with our vendors, the ability to put in technology and systems was tantamount for us to make some of those changes.
Yeah. Was there any examples on the inbound side, like at Kohl's, for an example, that you ended up, was it a whole like vendor compliance program that you really just implement? Is that what you're?
It was, but then it also became more than that. It became a vendor certification process. So we really kind of did it from cradle to grave. And so it wasn't just once they shipped us, it was, we had the ability, because we were working with them, to really, I guess, make it really holistic from ground to until it was shipped out to our customers, and whether it was B2C or even our stores. But again, the biggest growth for Kohl's at the time and continues is e-com. And that's really where I saw the biggest growth. And as the merchants would say and told me, that this is really one of those monumental things that changed their ability to be better merchants and provide better service to the end customer.
And I guess that's to your earlier point, when you're selecting a 3PL partner, I guess it kind of goes with the additional value added services, even though you could argue that it should be part of the core offering, but it isn't always.
But it could be something, again, that helps differentiate a 3PL from someone else.
A strong merchant program.
Yeah. Right, exactly. But I think when you look at it, and I think you're spot on, that everyone is focusing on the last piece of it. And we're missing the big piece of it, because without inventory, without having the right product, again, we're supply chain people. We'll become efficient. We'll become more accurate. We'll become more cost competitive. Okay, but if we don't have it, you can't ship it.
Yeah, it's everything you hear about. It's final mile, it's 2-day delivery, 1-day delivery transit times, it's outbound order fulfillment, plethora of different technologies and solutions to help with that high volume outbound B2C fulfillment. But the inbound, it really does begin there, and returning back to the basics, I think, is where I find the opportunity to be in today's environment, at least. Well, Jay, I appreciate the time today. I really do. Where can our listeners go to get in touch with you and to just know a little bit more about SLB?
Well, again, thanks for the opportunity. Really enjoyed our time. Time goes by quickly. In a number of different areas, but one would be www.slbperformance.com or on LinkedIn. Happy to talk to any of your listeners. Again, my job and my focus, my passion is to help companies go from good to great, or sometimes go from poor to good. And most of my background has really been turnaround and growth. So love the opportunity to talk to you. Love the opportunity to talk to your listeners. Again, big fan, and thank you for what you do. And look forward to coming back to the show sometime in the future. We can talk about all the successes that we were able to do together.
Hopefully we'll have a little bit more to share in the Power BI for you. Jay, thanks, man. I love it. Appreciate it. This concludes our episode of Unboxing Fulfillment, the Modern B2C Fulfillment Podcast. Stay safe, everyone.